So the year keeps unfolding. We have today this magnificent interaction of a rich boy. It's probably a pejorative term, a rich boy who encounters Christ. He's kept all the commandments, and Jesus says, well, why don't you give up all your wealth and come follow me? He goes away sad. St. Mark says he goes away sad because he was a man of great wealth. He must have inherited the wealth. He was only very young, apparently. And there is a tradition that floats around, it's only pure speculation, of course, that in fact this rich young guy who initially said no to Christ, at a later stage came back and said yes to Christ, and hence the story found its way into the gospel. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But I remember someone of some repute telling me that was one of the possibilities about the origins of the story. What we do know is that a man who was born in 251 and died in 356, known as St. Anthony Abbot or St. Anthony of Egypt, the very first Christian hermit, he heard this particular gospel. He went into a parish church, he went into the gospel, his parents had died, he inherited a lot of wealth, and this struck him so forcibly that in fact he did give up all of his wealth. He went out into the desert and received the whole gift of prayer initially. He was a man of deep prayer and had to fight with his demons, we're told. History recounts. St. Athanasius, one of the great figures of history, wrote a hagiography or a history about St. Anthony Abbot, and he talks about his life of prayer and his struggle with the demonic. He also was very, very hospitable. He received countless pilgrims. As the Roman Empire started to disintegrate, people were saying, well, what's left? And what was left was these pockets of Christianity, including St. Anthony of Egypt, who went out into the desert in Egypt and they flocked to him and received counsel. And we're also told that he was a man of extraordinary courage. That is, that all those Christians who were persecuted for their faith in jail, he would go to them and try and provide great comfort to them. So he didn't just retreat from the world, he was very much engaged with the world, contrary to what some people believe. So he was a man of great wealth, this rich young man we have in the gospel, and he was unable to initially give of himself to Christ. He was a man who followed the commandments to the letter, we're told. So he followed all the rules, but he wasn't able to follow Christ. We're told in the text, and I think we should finish with this, and we should really focus on this, because we're told in the text that Jesus looked at him steadily and loved him. It's a great phrase. It's an incredible phrase. They obviously, the people who wrote down this particular scene, or perhaps even that young man himself, told of that experience that he had, that Jesus looked steadily at him and loved him. And in the tradition, in our incredibly rich tradition in the church, we have this marvellous idea. It starts really from the Old Testament. So for instance, if you go to the book of Job, which we think is a book about suffering, but it is a book about suffering, but when you look at the book of Job closely, you see that in fact Job discovers that God is looking at him every step of the way. It's a marvellous book in his suffering and in his success, in his joys and in his sorrows. And this then, in a sense, opens the door to this very rich tradition in the church that God is looking at us for the whole of our life. And if we can grab hold of that we're living in the presence of God, a lot of things undoubtedly change. A lot of things are transformed within us. It's a magnificent phrase in the gospel. And particularly, I think, on this particular day, we should think of all of our young people and encourage them and pray for them that they will have this experience. People sell young people short, it seems to me. When we put before them the beauty and the truth and the joy and the peace of Christ, they surely will respond. That Jesus looked steadily at that young man and loved him. Jesus today looks at the young people that we all know. He looks at them steadily and he loves them. Let's hang on to that.